Growing up in Los Angeles as the son of Salvadoran immigrants, Steven Levy Cruz learned early what it meant to live between two worlds. That connection to El Salvador eventually led him to create AFJA, a nonprofit using soccer to create opportunity, community, and access for underserved youth in Central America. But AFJA has grown into something much bigger. Steven and his organization have helped bring Salvadoran culture to some of LA's biggest stages, partnering on Salvadoran Heritage Nights with the Dodgers, the Angels, the LA Galaxy, and more. He's also the founder of Pupusas With A Purpose, using food and culture to give back to the same communities that inspired his work. And this year, Steven was recognized for his work with AFJA at the first ever Noche de Herencia Salvadoreña. In this conversation, we talk identity, culture, entrepreneurship, and what it means to build something that creates opportunities for the people who come after you. My name is Alex Narváez, and this is Grayscale LA.
Yeah. Steven, thank you for coming through, brother.
Man.
Bro, so listen, man, I've been in LA for just over a year, and everybody who I've connected with knows I'm here trying to really build with other Salvadoreños. And every Salvadoreño that I've connected with here somehow throws your name around. I jokingly said this to you last week when we were hanging out. But I'm like, you're like the unofficial mayor of like Salvadorian culture out here, bro. So it's an honor to have you here. Thank you for coming in and taking the time to do this conversation with me. I want to jump right into, I guess, part of your journey that led you to be this ambassador for Salvadorian culture. I know that for you, we've talked about this behind the scenes, but some of your journey really leads from being born and raised here to immigrant parents from El Salvador, but having the opportunity to venture back and forth through travel. Your mom would send you back to El Salvador early. And that's kind of where you developed this cross-border international feel for your approach to work and entrepreneurship. So give me a little bit of that, of what your upbringing was like being a Salvi in LA, but that had roots directly from your travel to El Salvador.
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, thanks for having me, right?
Of course.
And, my experience growing up in LA really stems from the duality of identity, whether that's not being quite enough Salvadoran when you're in El Salvador to be Salvadoreño, or here in the States not being the typical archetype of a American, right? Even though I was born here. It's really like a bridge of bridging the gap between two cultures, two worlds, two very different countries and cultures that I find myself like kind of being that bridge that connects two sides.
You're doing an amazing job with your organizations because, like I said, your name gets thrown around a lot within the Salvadorian community, right? So I want to get into that. I mean, AFJA, I heard of AFJA before I even met you, before I connected with you. People were like, AFJA. And honestly, before, when I was in Toronto, I told this to Jose, who I know you have a working relationship with as well. But when I was in Toronto, I was over here looking at like Jose's post and like all of these things around the Heritage Nights at the Dodgers game, at all these big, stadiums and big teams. And I had the biggest FOMO, bro. Yeah. I was just like in Toronto, like, man, I want to get out to LA and like be part of this and celebrate, Salvadorian culture with all these people. And come to find out that a lot of this is run through AFJA, and you are the founder of AFJA. So, bro, I know I'm jumping a lot in terms of like how you got into where it is, but tell me a little bit about AFJA.
So, AFJA is an organization that was born from those experiences growing up and traveling back to El Salvador. I had the immense privilege of my summer camps growing up were going to El Salvador, and specifically where my mom's from, which is a Canton Los Amates in San Juan Opico. Canton Los Amates is 2 kilometers away from a pueblo, which is further separated from like downtown San Salvador. Like all the stuff that you're seeing right now with the Centro Histórico and the new library and all that stuff, like my canton is very far away from that.
Right.
So with that distance comes a lot of disparities in the experiences of kids growing up there. So when I would go for summer camp, right, or summer vacation, my mom, it was really from her not having access to childcare, right? And really also from a very conscious decision of her wanting me to be connected to my culture and pick up a second language and not be so lost in who I was as a Salvadoreño. Come from a very proud family of being Salvadoran, right? It's something that we were taught in our family. Even if you talk to my cousins or like, we're all very proud to be Salvadoran. So growing up, I would travel back and forth in the beginning of the summer and then at the end. And if you've been there during our summer months, it's pouring rain over there, right? So I would find myself often not being able to connect with the kids at first because the language, right? The culture, like I would be very sensitive about jokes, you know, like I'd be like, oh, like, are they talking shit about me or whatever? It's like, no, that's just like, that's how they endearment, right? That's how you're brought into the friend group or the cousin group and all that. And that's how I started to pick up on what it meant to be a little boy in El Salvador. But what struck me at a very early age, one of my earliest memories, probably like maybe 7, 8 years old, is I grew up playing baseball, right? Like my mom would put me in sports. Again, she didn't have childcare. So, hey, here's the coach, go at least for a couple hours. But nobody played baseball when I would go to El Salvador. I would play football. And those pouring, rainy days were some of the most just cherished memories of mine, playing football on a muddy pasture that has been converted into a soccer field. That same soccer field is where we have our academy today, our AFJA academy. And some of those kids that I used to play with are some of the coaches or parents that make up our community. And when I see that soccer field, I don't just see a soccer field, I see a place where a kid can socialize, where a mom can go sell items like mango and things and make a little money, right? Like a microeconomy. I see a place where community is built.
Right.
And I brought those lessons back to LA. So from seeing the disparity of kids not having shoes or cleats or toys, you know, things like that, as a little kid, I would travel with things and then come back with empty stuff or sandals. I used to get in trouble from my mom. She's like, I just bought you those shoes. But it's like, oh, well, you know, Fulanito didn't have the shoes and you know, just leaving stuff behind.
Yeah. It's amazing when I wish more people had the opportunity to travel at a young age.
Yeah.
Because you start to realize how privileged we are.
Yes.
Right. And I mean, even in, you know, being in North America, I was raised in Canada as a Salvadoreño, but I was born in El Salvador. Mm-hmm. But being raised in Toronto, Canada, and, you know, at times you feel like, man, I don't have a lot. But then you go back to El Salvador and you're like, I have more than a lot of these kids have, yeah. Right? And that puts things into perspective. So I think you being able to have that experience as a kid really shaped your approach to even entrepreneurship. I've heard you speak a lot on, you know, raising money, you know, and all the things that entail being like a social entrepreneur and working for nonprofits. And a lot of it is raising funds and generating money to create a project, bring a project to life. But I think a lot of people do that with the intention to make money for themselves, you know?
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, at the end of the day, you got to make money. If you're working on a project and you're putting all your time into it, you got to find a way to make a living yourself, if that is your end all be all and that's your day job.
Yeah.
But I find that your approach is also a lot about giving back, right? So why don't we get into a little bit of, you know, first of all, tell me, I asked you this the other day when we were hanging out and I was like, so what do you call yourself? Are you a social entrepreneur? Are you a non-for-profit exec? Like, what is your title? Like, what do you do?
Yeah, I'd go with social entrepreneur. And traditionally those two things are not, they don't live in harmony, right? You can't be an entrepreneur because that's capital driven, self enrichment driven, or a social driven person, or somebody that's socially aware of programs and creating those types of things. Because how do you give everything away and still are an entrepreneur? But that's something that I learned in college, that it is possible, that it is possible to use entrepreneurship and the same traditional business mindsets and practices to create self-sustaining models for nonprofit efforts or nonprofit programs. How do you build something that can withstand when grant money and donation money runs dry or is not coming in? You have to create a revenue stream to keep your programs going, and that's something that I've learned over the years.
Can I ask you, what does success look like for somebody in your position? And I'm not, maybe not an overall general, like in your position, because maybe there are other people in your position that have a different approach to what social entrepreneurship might look like. But more so for you as an individual, like what does success look like for you? Is it, you know, running a sustainable project and also driving like the nicest car and living in a mansion? Like, what does success look like for you?
Success for me as an individual is time. When you can have, and I'm learning this now as a new father, there's nothing like time. Time is currency. And you can make time, right? Like if something is important for you, you make time for that. And that's creation, right? Like that's I think that's currency. If you dedicate your time toward somebody else's project or somebody else's vision, it's because you are investing in that, right? Investing time. So I think time is currency. And I think success for me is when you have time to dedicate to the things that you care about, whether that's your family, whether that's your art. That's success for me, is being the decider of how you invest your time.
It's good to hear what everyone's success looks like because it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
What you're describing sounds to me more like freedom.
Yep.
Freedom, like where it's not, your freedom is not necessarily tied to money or like a certain level of achieving something. It's just more having freedom and time to put your energy in what you want to grow and what you want to do.
Exactly.
Is that right?
Exactly.
I think honestly that I think even people who don't necessarily say that, I think that's what a lot of people are after.
Right.
It's just like freedom, financial freedom, and freedom to do what you want to do. So I think we're all going to try to take a page out of your book and see how we can achieve that.
Yeah.
But I want to get a little bit more into business conversation, especially because I know you have a background in it from school and you're doing it every day. Let's talk about the challenges and how to overcome something like raising funds. I think a lot of us, myself included, like this space that we're in, Grayscale LA, I want to grow this eventually. And I've been able to do similar projects in Toronto. I'm learning the landscape here in LA. Mm-hmm. But even a lot of creatives that I speak to here in LA, they have ideas. They don't necessarily know how to bring them to life because of the funding component, mm-hmm. right? That's always a big thing, is like you can have a great idea, but if you don't know how to do the business side of it or the logistical side of it to bring the funds in, to hire the team, to do all of that,
yeah,
you're gonna be stuck, right? So what is your approach once you have the idea, once you came up with AFJA, once you came up with Pupusas with a Purpose, you've had these great ideas and you've been able to build teams, get funding. What does that look like for you? What are some steps that you could provide for people who are in a similar position?
I think we're living in a time in human history where it's never been easier to tell a story than it is now, right? And convey a message, right? And you have to, one of the main things you have to hone in on is your story. You might call it an elevator pitch. You might call it your deck, your vision, right? What is your vision statement? All those things, you really have to have the ability to tell that story, but in order to tell that story, you have to believe that it's real. So for AFJA, I don't have any background in video editing, for example. right? I've always liked storytelling. I still remember when I was a kid, taking my dad's video camera and making movies with my friends, right? Like, and just that imagination, but putting it on film and in front of a camera. And that was, now looking back, that's content creation, right?
Of course.
And I think that's really important to recognize, that you have access to so many tools now to go to market. That the business term of what's your go-to-market strategy? To go to market, it's really, you have to have something to show, right? Because if not, it's just an idea. There's a million people outside of this window right now with a great idea. But if they don't have the ability to tell that story to somebody else, then that can't lead to an opportunity to manifest that idea, right? So being able to tell that story in the current age means either film, photography, creating something get yourself a Canva account and make a flyer, right? So our first, for AFJA, for example, I literally took a GoPro camera, didn't take a fancy camera, didn't take a film crew. I took a GoPro camera, no mics, just a GoPro camera, to the elementary school that we began the program with, and gave it to my cousin who had never touched a GoPro before, and said, "Here, hold this. We're going to walk into the school, film us walking into the school." And a lot of it is also, I think, God's plan, you know what I mean? And divine timing, divine intervention of, hey, like, this is something that is blessed and is something that is going to be successful because it's good. So I don't want to say that, hey, this is all from the mind of Steven Cruz. I think, all power be to God, and really giving us the privilege of doing this work, because that GoPro footage, put it into my school MacBook, right? Like the one that I was using to take notes on. I had just graduated, connected that, iMovie, that's a stock program, and had never really edited much before. I had done little things here and there, but I edited that video myself and put it with the Odessa song and made a montage, right? I didn't know these terms then. I didn't know what a montage was, or a vignette, or those types of things. And I created that, put it on YouTube, uploaded it to my Facebook, and just asked and communicated that message, right? Without me having to be in the room, I was able to reach people around the world and diaspora that says, hey, like, we're raising funds to build a soccer academy for underserved kids in El Salvador. That's me saying it, but it's different when you show it.
Right. There's a lot to unpack there in what you said, man. Beautiful, beautiful thing. So let's start first with the storytelling element, right?
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. I think today everybody has a phone in everybody's pocket. You have the ability to storytell, in grander ways than we did at the time when you created AFJA, and at the time that I started in all this. Like, you needed heavy production and all this stuff, and now you don't, right? So I agree with you 100% with storytelling, and it's refreshing to hear that from an entrepreneur's perspective and from a nonprofit perspective, it still comes down to storytelling and being able to convey your idea, communicate your idea to others. I want to get back to some of that, but before we move on to some of the other things that you said about spirituality and giving thanks to God, I had the opportunity, and I was fortunate enough to attend with you because you invited me to this BMO field of like business leadership with the LAFC, and it was a great event. But as I'm hearing you talk about being able to communicate your idea and present like a story of what you're communicating, I saw you in action networking, bro. And I have to say, I walked away from that experience, number one, thinking my networking game, I need to elevate my networking game because Steven crushed, right? But you have this incredible way of communicating, almost like it's not an elevator pitch because it's not scripted, but you have this incredible way of being able to be magnanimous and speak to different people and communicate your idea very fluently. How important is the networking component to what you do? Because the storytelling is there. So once you develop the story of what you want to communicate, now you need to go and communicate it to people. And that's where the networking comes in, right? Yeah. So how important is that part, and how did you develop your networking skills?
I don't think I've ever gone to like a seminar or something on how to network. I think we're all...
We need to create one.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. But I think by nature, we're all hesitant to approach people, especially if you are in a position where they're, maybe like we were in a room full of millionaires that day, like I told you, right? Like these are really wealthy people that own professional sports teams. And how do we, as a person that is built on a social platform, go to somebody that's built on a capital-driven platform and ask for help? And I think it's really listening. If you remember, we had the opportunity to sit and listen to owners of different professional sports franchises, and I think listen attentively to what is important to them. What is their mission? What is their goal? Their goal isn't just to sell tickets and fill their stadium. That's obviously a big component of what that business does, but they're driven by a similar cause, which is to move people through sports. So build community through sports and move people through sports. And I'm not talking physically, like go out there and train, but emotionally drive people to feel connected to something. And by listening, like you have to be a really good listener to be a good networker, right? And people love to share about what their work is and listen attentively, and you'll feel it innately where those connect to your goals and your missions, and you find alignment. And networking is also about not gatekeeping contacts, right? Or I love introducing people, and sometimes it leads to people moving on and doing projects with people that I've connected with, and I'm not even involved, and that's okay, right? That's fine, because down the line it'll come back, or something happens from that connection. Especially in our Latino community, in our Central American community, and more focused on our Salvadoran community, I've learned that it's really important to not gatekeep opportunities or gatekeep connections, because they can lead to bigger opportunities for us as well.
Yeah, that's well said, man. I agree with you 100%. I can also, say, because I was there and I saw you in person.
I don't know if this is my water, but
that's your water 100%. There's a cup there if you want to pour it in.
Thank you.
While you pour that up, I will continue to sing your praises on the networking thing. Thank you. Because I was really inspired, man. I have to say, honestly, I was really inspired by watching you in action, just because of the way that you handled yourself. And for obviously people weren't there, but there was a point, during the panel where all these very important owners of teams, they all said their piece, and at the end there was a Q&A, and you put your hand up, and right away you're involving yourself in a way where it's not obnoxious or anything. You're just creating awareness on what your project is and finding a way to give back at the same time. So I was just very impressed with that overall, man. I think networking is something that a lot of people don't do enough of, or don't think that maybe, I'm not good at networking, I'm not good at talking. And sometimes it's not about that.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's really just about finding comfort in, like you said, listening to someone else and providing some kind of solution that you could do, right?
Exactly.
That's all it comes down to.
Added value, right? Adding value to other people's experiences.
Yeah. Let's get back to some of your work, right? So AFJA, you talked a little bit about it. Give me the AFJA elevator pitch. So I know that there's a soccer field. I know that there's goods that get sent to the kids. I know there's a fundraising component. But for those who are listening, what exactly is AFJA?
AFJA is an acronym, right? And the acronym is Academia de Fútbol Juvenil Amatense. But if you go and say that to anybody, like, what did you just call me, right? No, it's AFJA is now more than just an acronym. AFJA is a movement. AFJA is a bridge to build access to the power of play for underserved kids in different communities. It's not just in El Salvador, but it's in Guatemala, it's here in Los Angeles, it's in Pico Union, it's inside of Dignity Health Sports Park for the LA Galaxy, right? So it's a movement that was created from the concept of building a bridge building access to the power of play. The power of play being this concept that kids, we're not building athletes. We're not. A lot of people think that, oh, like, hey, like why when is the Selecta gonna have an AFJA athlete? I'm like, we have had, AFJA kids from the rural part of El Salvador play on the national team on both the men's side and the women's side. But that's not our goal. Our goal is to harness the power of play where kids can socialize and network and share ideas and share moments of just childhood and the beauty that comes with building friendships and long-standing relationships that they will carry on for the rest of their lives. That is what AFJA is. So I don't know how many flights are on the building that this elevator is on, but depending on how much time you have with whatever it is you're pitching or whatever it is you're sharing, like, modify it. But
yeah, that's a good piece of advice. I also wanted to bring up, because I found out that night that we went to this networking event, and I hadn't fully heard it until I heard you say it out to the room. But the fact that you were the winner of this like MLS competition, it fits so well in that moment, because we're there for like this MLS related networking, power player event. And for you to be able to mention that, I think caught everybody's attention. It was a big deal. It was like, oh, this guy's like already like the winner of this MLS fundraising thing. So can you tell me about this competition? And I know you won $25K for AFJA.
Yes.
So tell me about what that was.
Oh man, that wasn't easy. So Major League Soccer has a social component called MLS WORKS. And it's their foundation arm that every year for the MLS All-Star Game, they identify individuals in each market that there's MLS teams to represent that market in a contest, international contest, because it's Canadian teams as well. There's the Vancouver Whitecaps and Toronto that participate. And each nominee then goes out into their community, into the respective market, and asks people to vote for their mission, right? And you don't have to vote for your LA mission. Like if you go and look at the lists, like I was up against some really great other organizations, and that like Design FC was representing Philadelphia. They do amazing work out there. And it's something that it's kind of like a popularity contest, right? Because it's like votes. And we were up against well-established organizations, right? Like multi-million-dollar nonprofit organizations. And this is a year after we started ours. I still had all the soccer gear that I had collected in a garage at that point, right? We didn't even have a storage unit. But I think the ability to tell our story is what ultimately helped us win that contest. And it's contentious because I'm a Galaxy fan. I'm come from an LA Galaxy family, but I was elected to represent LAFC, and then their fans had an issue with me being a Galaxy fan and representing their club. So I really didn't get any support from LAFC. I didn't get anything from that club, but my club, LA Galaxy, and my Salvadoran community made sure that we won that contest because they had connected with the work that we had been doing for at least a year preceding that. And despite all odds, really one of the most surprising things that I've ever experienced is winning that contest, because we were dead last. And I'm not sure, I think it was like 26 teams or something like that. We, at halftime at the Orlando Stadium, announced at halftime that we won 25 grand, which was our first grant for AFJA, which was the catalyst to then becoming a Nike grant recipient, to then becoming, catching media attention, and then the LA Galaxy giving us a spot inside the stadium to sell our food. And it was just like a launch pad.
That's incredible, man. That's incredible. I mean, if you're ever thinking about a true underdog story, that's a real underdog story, man. From not getting support from the team because of the fans and the conflict with the fandom.
Yeah.
But then the actual Salvadorian community rallying behind to like get the votes in and push it across, right? Like that's a true underdog winning story.
Yeah,
right?
And I think it speaks to the Salvadoran beast that has awakened, right? Like the strength of our collective buying power, the reason that we're doing these, like we're able to do these Salvadoran Heritage Nights with these stadiums and arenas is because they see the numbers of just turnout and purchase power. And that's something that the teams had not tapped into until we had knocked on the door many times. We rang the doorbell, nobody answered. We knocked on it politely. Then eventually we had to kick it door down. So,
right.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about how you're feeling about the World Cup this year. I know it's bittersweet for us. El Salvador didn't make it, didn't qualify. Would have been beautiful with this, North American kind of collective to have El Salvador participate.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is a conversation that I've had with my dad and my parents about the El Salvador Selecta, and like we don't make it, but we're always rooting. It's like it's hard being an El Salvador soccer fan because we love soccer, but our team doesn't generally qualify for like the big leagues, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you say to Salvadorian fans, or especially you, because you built a business and organization on the soccer model, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about that overall?
I mean, this World Cup is contentious to begin with. I've never been to a World Cup. My love for soccer is because of my shared experiences with my dad, who was a huge soccer fan. Like, he went to the '94 World Cup. I have wonderful photos of him. You could just see the joy in that man's face. My dad was the biggest Brazil fan, right? Like, he loved Brazil. And I used to always be like, Dad, like, why don't you root for El Salvador? And he's like, maletas. He was so disheartened. Like, he had already been emotionally beaten down over the years because he was alive when El Salvador went to the World Cup twice, right? Like, he lived through El Salvador's first World Cup in the late 70s and then in the early 80s, and saw Mágico González represent the country, right? Saw our players be prolific and play against Maradona, and Maradona, one of the great players of the history, acknowledging a Salvadoran as a player that's better than him.
Right.
So to see the game change, because a lot of people say, oh, why can't we go back to those days? It's like, because the game is different now. Sports are different now, right? Like, AFJA has this, or AFJA STEM in sports, or STEM lab, where we teach kids STEM topics through a sports lens, right? So that you understand that inside of the soccer balls that are rolling on the fields of the World Cup this year are microchips, right? Yeah. There's VAR. The hockey pucks in the Stanley Cup finals have microchips inside of them. Those sports bra looking things are actually, that the players are wearing, are data trackers, and the game is different. So if you're not evolving to that technology, and that you can't just do it off grit anymore. And that's really what the Salvadoran national team had in their last World Cup appearances, was true grit, right? So what do I say to people that are like, why isn't El Salvador in the World Cup? It's like, look at the disparity in access of development of the sport. It's we've neglected, as Salvadorans have neglected the development of the game. And I've had the privilege of working closely with former national team coaches in El Salvador, trying to understand why it is that El Salvador doesn't compete at that level. And it's infrastructure from the fundamental level, like the soccer fields, for example, for the professional, like the top Premier League in El Salvador, those pitches are not to the same standard. Like, it's not the right grass, it's not the right conditions to train. So when you come and when they fly into the States or into Canada and play at polished stadium with the amenities and everything, it's like the ball's rolling a lot faster. The player that you're competing against has a nutritionist, has all these things around the clock, and we have a lot of catching up to do.
That's interesting, because I think in the public eye, people are looking at El Salvador like it's progressed drastically, which it has in many areas of the country, right? And people are looking at the soccer component, like our national team, as, why is this part not evolving the way the rest of the country is, right? I mean, the country now all of a sudden seems to have so many resources and People are loving what Bukele's doing and the safety. And, I keep seeing new posts all the time about El Salvador being the new Dubai, right? But still, our country in terms of sports is not there yet. So what do you think needs to happen in terms of maybe like a national level or a resource level to get the team there?
I will say this. I think El Salvador will see a lot more investment. Again, not just capital, but of time and attention in soccer. We're getting a brand new stadium, which is coming at a lot of costs, a lot of debt and a lot of costs. But there's going to be a change in Salvadoran soccer. I wholeheartedly believe that. It's already happening. I think the right people are in the positions to make that change for the betterment of the experience of the soccer fan. I don't know if it's for the betterment of the experience for all Salvadorans or I'm speaking specifically for the betterment of people going to watch and support El Salvador. I think you're going to see improvement, right? Because a lot more attention and investment of resources is happening in the sports. And it's not just soccer. I mean, El Salvador, has archery, has swimmers, has basketball, baseball. So that's part of the motivation I felt as a little kid to represent El Salvador and to bet. It's like, man, I'm tired of watching the Gold Cup and us losing 5-0 to Mexico, and I can't wear my Salvadoran jersey without somebody talking shit. You know what I mean? And it lit a fire in me to say, hey, why is that, right? Why can't we compete at an elite level? And it's not that we can't, it's just that we haven't had the right players in place. And I'm not just talking about on the field, but sports scientists, right? Or the right coach or the right training staff, the right field groundskeepers, the right players in place.
Is this something that you, as AFJA, I know you're already in the soccer scene, mentoring, coaching young kids, helping to discover talent, provide opportunity. But do you ever hope to, elevate that to the point where you're working with the national team or helping to bring in these nutritionists, bring in the infrastructure required for the national team? Is that something that you see yourself doing, wanting to be a part of?
As a fan of El Salvador, yes, right? I want El Salvador to succeed. I've helped do scouting events here in LA and organizing not just for the national team, but for Club Deportivo FAS, and getting US-born players into the database that what's his name? Alvarado. His last name is Hugo Alvarado. Selecta talent. He was just a Salvadoran fan that was tired of seeing El Salvador not compete at the right level, and he created a database and started finding players in Holland or in Canada or in Australia, because our diaspora is so big. There's so many Salvadorans living outside of El Salvador that can still represent the national team. And that's when I was really excited to work closely with the national team to help organize scouting camps here in LA. And we did that for both men and women. To find that talent and at a very young age. You got to start at 12 years old and develop that player. So I feel like I've done that work, right? I've helped in that regard. And if opportunities came knocking for me to do that again, I would love to do that, because I love El Salvador and I want the country to compete. And I know, if you go to a soccer field here in LA, there's going to be a Salvadoran on the team. And more than likely, he's one of the ones that is competing and really outperforming people. Why is it that doesn't translate to a professional level? And I think it's development, right? Nutrition, psychology, all these components. I'm not a soccer coach. You know what I mean? I don't have a coaching license, but there's something here. We're missing that piece of the puzzle to connect the dots. Again, a bridge.
I agree with you. I think, in the coming years, especially with the stadium and more resources being poured into soccer in El Salvador, I do feel like it's only a matter of time right? Before you start to see the team elevate and grow into what it should be.
It has to.
Yeah, it has to.
Yeah.
And I love hearing that. I didn't know that you did that, but I think finding, talent that is still of Salvadorian roots that can play for the national team, that didn't even occur to me. But that's also a cool strategy.
Yeah.
Right. And people who still are proud and would want to represent the national team.
I think that comes from the U.S. national team. But 6 days from now or 7 days from now, you're going to see a U.S. national team play here in Inglewood against Paraguay that's made up of players that were born in London, of U.S. parents, right? Or were born by some kind of coincidence in New York, but grew up their whole time in Europe, getting developed with the proper nutrition, proper environment. We're a product of our environment.
Of course. Let's talk a little bit about Pupusas with a Purpose. When I first heard about this organization, again, I didn't know you were the one behind it. Of course, I should have known it was you. But Pupusas with a Purpose for me was cool because as I learned more about, first of all, I love pupusas, bro. And I'm so proud of pupusas that people in Toronto and other people that have followed me, I feel so proud when people are like, yo, bro, I tried pupusas because I saw your
delicious.
posts.
Yeah.
So I'm always excited to like share our cuisine with the world, right? But Pupusas with a Purpose, man, tell me about that. I mean, I saw a little bit of it at the Ambiente Central event that we went to, that you invited me to.
Yeah.
But tell me more about it and like what it stems with, because I know it works in unison with AFJA as well, right?
Yeah. So Pupusas with a Purpose is a social enterprise that is revolving around bringing traditional Salvadoran and Central American dishes into spaces with the purpose of raising funds for nonprofit causes. It's one of the revenue streams that keeps our nonprofit going. Whenever the nonprofit is in need of funds or a special project like a scholarship or something comes around, then the business will activate and raise funds and keep that going. That allows us to be more independent from grants and donations, so that, hey, yeah, like we can continue to apply for grants and like put GoFundMe pages out there and raise some capital, but having that self-reliance and self-sustainability is really important to us, so that we don't have to always just rely on given money, but earned money and raised capital. And it's something that I remember it being done for community, right? Like if somebody had a relative pass away in El Salvador and there was money that needed to be raised for the casket or anything like that, you sell food, right? And a former board member of ours brought the name Pupusas with a Purpose to us, and I said that's brilliant, right? It's not, I didn't come up with that name, but it's exactly what it is, and people respond to it. So when we had our Nike grant back in 2020, the pandemic hit right away, and priorities and focuses from Nike shifted on what they needed to invest in. So they made good on their promise to fund us for 3 years, but after those 3 years, they informed us that, hey, like we're not going to be able to renew your grant. So what did we do? We used our knowledge of how to raise capital, which was to sell food. And I created a little business plan and took it to the president of the LA Galaxy at the time, along with the general manager of Dignity Health Sports Park. A lot of people know it as Home Depot Center, but and said, hey, like we have helped you with Central American Heritage Nights. We have helped you bring the Central American community here back, because it's always been part of the Galaxy's community, but there's no place to eat Central American food inside the stadium. And they're like, we know pupusas are in farmers markets and in like pupuserias, but can they be in a stadium? I'm like, let me show you that they can. They're like, okay, well, we'll give you one game. Next season, home opener, bring a food truck. I didn't have a food truck, right? So they said, bring a food truck, you got to drive in and drive out, and you have to have this crazy insurance and all that. So every obstacle that they put in front of us, we circumnavigated, we found a way to resolve it. We're resourceful people. Salvadorans are resourceful people. Latinos are resourceful people. You know what I mean? By nature, we figure it out.
Resilient.
Exactly. We have that resiliency and just tenacity to make it to our destination. That's how we're here, right? So going back to that, they were like, okay, we'll give you the home opener. And that's where Jose comes in, right? Phone call to my buddy Jose, my boy. He's like, hey, we got this opportunity to bring Pupusas into the stadium. And you know this already. Jose is just super enthusiastic of anything having to do with representing Salvador. He's like, let's do it. Let's fucking do it. Let's go. It took him maybe like a couple days to come up with this video with him and his buddy Nelson to announce that Pupusas are coming to the stadium. And we broke a lot of rules in the sense of using the Galaxy's footage, right? Like their announcement of their season and edit that, but make it the announcement that the Pupusas were coming to the stadium. And I still remember that day, the first day that we had Pupusas with a Purpose, because I looked up and our line was so long that I was like, there's no way we're gonna be able to feed all these people. Like, what are we gonna do, right? Like we sold out before by halftime, we had sold out all of our food.
Wow.
And I just remember the stadium staff coming to put more stanchions to like try to figure out the way that the long line for the Pupusas wouldn't affect
try to bend
traffic.
The line.
Yeah. And it was great, man. And the response from the LA community, the Galaxy community was so strong, because it was, hey, A, this is delicious. 2, it feels better to eat because it's like part of the proceeds go to help this mission that we are already familiar with AFJA. So we went from a food truck for 2 years to a little shack in the corner of the stadium to now we have our full build out location at the stadium. And we're actually celebrating 5 years this year with Pupusas with a Purpose.
That's incredible, man. Again, talk about underdog stories, right?
Yeah.
But the reason why I even wanted to have this conversation with you and have you in as a guest is because your story is so inspiring, man. Your story is really inspiring from an individual perspective, but also really from a community perspective. I by nature, I'm a community guy too. In Toronto, I did a lot of community work, but you know, like I said, coming to LA and building with other Salvadoreños, I love what Jose, and like other people are doing for the Salvadorian community, man. So I want to big you up and give you your flowers, bro. But I think that's amazing. So right now, if we were to go to the stadium, there is a pupusa build out for Pupusas with a Purpose, where you could buy pupusas and eat pupusas.
Yep.
That's incredible, man.
Yeah, we're right next to the team store.
Wow, man. Wow, that's incredible. I'm gonna have to go try some of these pupusas.
No, and we're not the only pupuseria inside stadiums. Like I know at DC United, there's a pupuseria in there, at the Washington Nationals.
Right.
And it's that same like grit. We're the ones that do like with the purpose and the nonprofit social enterprise angle. But to me, it's really dope to have a pupusera in the stadium and have that offering for community. And our customers aren't just Salvadorans. Like there's a ton of Mexicans love pupusas, man.
Yeah.
Like people from Asian backgrounds love pupusas. Like I have Korean homies that love curtido because they're like, oh, this is like kimchi.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the beautiful thing about LA.
For sure, I agree. Lots of people love pupusas, man.
Yeah.
My wife is Mexicana, and she loves pupusas just as much as I do, right? Yeah. So I feel you on that. I really like the way that you were able to build out the money-making arm to be able to feed AFJA. And I think that's the part that a lot of people miss out on, is like you can create the business or the nonprofit or the cool art project, but without funds coming in, it won't be sustainable, right? So I think, for anyone that's looking to create a project, is this the way that you recommend to do it? Is like to create a separate money-making arm to support perhaps the art project or the nonprofit? Is that the way that you would recommend doing it?
Yeah, I think there's different opportunities to build revenue, right? To raise funds. With AFJA, it's not just Pupusas with a Purpose. Our Salvadoran Heritage Nights are another stream that raises capital for us to keep going, right? We have our clothes, right? Like our merch. That big shout out to Jonathan and the Life Apparel, because they do big contracts. They do like Nipsey Hussle's marathon clothing. They do Fetty Wap's concert clothing. Like they do huge accounts. But Jonathan is a Galaxy fan, was a diehard customer of Pupusas With A Purpose. I think he spent a whole season coming to our food stand every game because he's a season ticket member, and would tell us, hey man, like let me do your merch, let me help you out with your merch, and at the time, like, we would do little shirts here and there, try to, campaigns. I still remember having to like pack everything, ship it out, and how frustrating sometimes was with returns, and just not having the infrastructure that Jonathan has, his crew. Big shout out to him, Art, and all the other people over there, because as soon as we clicked up with them, we started putting out baseball jerseys, hockey jerseys that were tied to Salvadoran Heritage Night campaigns for the teams that we worked with. We've done official collabs with the San Jose Sharks. We have some other collabs on the horizon with other professional sports teams that are going to be explosive, right? Because now you have Salvadoran designs, like iconography and cultural elements on the garments that tell that story. Right. One thing, for example, on the back of the jersey for the Angels game that we're doing at the end of this month is an angel, right? Like a statue of El Angel from a monument that's in El Salvador, and it looks a lot like the angel that's in Mexico, right? Like the golden angel. And some of the comments on the post when we first went live, it's like, oh, you guys messed up. That monument is from Mexico. And it's a learning opportunity, right? It's an opportunity to say, hey, like, actually it's not. Like, we have a monument, and this is the story of that. And that's, in the plaza where the Constitution for El Salvador was rectified and all that. That's cool to me. Like, I have fun with that, right? Because I learn things about my culture. We have the Disco de Jaguar on the back of our baseball jerseys, which is a archaeological piece that was found in El Salvador, and it's like, oh, like that, that's something that you would associate with a pyramid in Tenochtitlan in Mexico. It's like, no, that was actually in El Salvador, and we have our own history to talk about. So
yeah, that's really great, man. I love what you're doing for Salvadorian culture. I want to also talk a little bit about talent management. Talent. I don't know if this is something that a lot of people know about you, but you also work somewhat in talent management as well, right?
Yep.
I know you work with Jose and you work with Ashley Webb.
Ash Webb,
right?
yeah.
Tell me about this other venture that you have going on as well.
Man, time, right? It goes back to time being currency, and investing time in projects and in people that you believe in, right? So with Jose, I remember I knew about Jose from a YouTube video when I was in college, that one of the tasks for a Chicano studies class was to find Latino comedians, right? And I was like, nice. You know what? Let me find a Salvadoran one, and I couldn't find one. But there was Jose. He didn't have a beard. He had short hair, like no curls, nothing. And he was up there doing his stand-up on a grainy YouTube video, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna do it on Jose Velasquez. No, never in a million years did I think back then that 12, 13 years later, that I would befriend this comedian that was on the trajectory, with his social media branding and his Apple or Amazon and Apple TV comedy special and all of that. And I was like, hey, Jose, like, I'm doing a lot of stuff in sports, and you can help me out, I can help you out. And we've developed a friendship. It's not even just a working relationship with Jose. He's like a big brother to me. Because we understand what it was like before this new wave of representation for Salvadorans and Central Americans were in place. We still remember those days where it was like shame, like people tried to shame you for being Salvadoran, simply for being of a heritage. And we were one of the early ones to resist that, and wear it on our sleeve unapologetically. So that's why I got a lot of love for Jose, and always work with him on different things. And with Ash, Ash is a soccer player, professional soccer player. I came across Ash because I follow both the men, women teams on social media for Salvador, and she was a player for Alianza. And looking into her profile a little bit, I found that she, played for the LA Galaxy when they had a girls' academy, and played in college. And then I started watching her footage, right, of her playing. I'm like, okay, like she's a baller, right? But talking to Ash, she is half white, half Salvadoran, but she's so Salvadoran, right? Like she wears that on her sleeve, and she's, blonde white girl from Southern California, but she wears that same energy, right? And I resonate with people that like want to represent El Salvador in a positive light. There's a lot of problems with the country. Not everything is perfect. Even today, right? Like this image of a utopia or this, hey, El Salvador figured it out. That's not the case for everybody, right? And it's not, there's not an easy solution to those social economic issues that are impacting my own family in rural El Salvador. There's also, I think, this resistance that I'm witnessing now from Salvadorans in El Salvador, like feeling like they are being maybe misrepresented by some of us in the diaspora, right? Like the Salvies, like I think it's almost like a bad word now, where it's like, hey, like don't make it seem like everything is rainbows and butterflies over here, because it's not. And don't continue to perpetuate this message that there's not still issues to be resolved. And I think respectfully, like we have to own that, right? That we want to be proud, but we have to be proud respectfully.
That's it's interesting, because I think this is a conversation that comes up a lot and almost like debates whether, and sometimes I, as a Salvadoreño born, raised in Toronto, now living in LA, I feel like I can speak on it, but I can't really speak on it because I'm not living over there.
Exactly.
Right. So it really sometimes, as Salvies, as you said, or Salvadoreños living abroad, it's not necessarily our place to talk about the conditions of people who are actually living there.
Correct.
Right. Can you speak a little bit on that? Like, I know that you are very closely tied to the country and you have family there. I have family there too.
Mm-hmm.
But I think everybody's perspective is different. So you having an insider's perspective there, what are some of the things you're hearing that still need work over there?
So this is something that is like tricky to talk about, especially on camera, but I'll do it. It's different experiences. For example, I have been working in the country before the current administration was in place. So, and I've been traveling to the country, as I said, since I was a kid. So I've seen what El Salvador has been like for the last 30 plus years. The same economic strifes that people have to, earning very little, working really hard, working really long hours for very little pay are still the case. Juxtapose that with the opportunities that some people have to now step outside of their home and go study or go to church without fear of maybe encountering gangs or encountering some kind of trouble is real as well, right? At what cost that comes is where I think a lot of the contention is. It's mass incarceration. Well, there was a massive problem at the same time. And again, we are speaking about this in a cozy chair in downtown Los Angeles, and it's very easy for us to just talk about it. But to live that is something I can't speak to because I'm not living there. And it's also tricky to sit here and critique, right? And write blogs or draw cartoons, here from Pasadena talking about, what El Salvador needs to do or what's wrong with El Salvador from a comfortable office chair, when the people that are like my family, for example, are afraid to speak out against that. And they purposefully don't speak up against those things for fear of job opportunities being lost or things like that. So while maybe the fear of being targeted from a gang has lessened, now it's fear of speaking out and being reprimanded for it.
So I think, I've had this conversation with lots of Salvadoreños abroad and some, family and friends in El Salvador. And the way that I think it's usually positioned is at what cost, right? So we have all the safety. We have, yes, you can walk outside at 3 a.m. and I feel safe, but at what cost, right? And then the people that fight the at what cost argument then are like, well, if you now are safe, but yes, there are still issues with like living conditions or poverty conditions to a degree. But those conditions also existed when there was gangs and
Exactly.
issues. So it's like now there aren't gangs that are roaming the streets, making it unlivable, but the poverty still exists.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's almost like I see both sides of the coin, especially like you said, as someone that doesn't live there. I'm not personally impacted by any of those decisions.
Yeah.
Right. So what would you say to somebody that doesn't see the bad side of what's happening, where they're like, well, this was already in place, before, and if anything, now it's only cleaned up?
It depends. I mean, I try not to, like, virtue signaling is a problem. I feel that virtue signaling is not something that I adopt. I feel that if I'm not going to tell people, oh, you should do something. It's, hey, like, this is the perspective that I bring and what I've lived and experienced. And this is something that I've never lived about, right? Like, yes, we all joke and talk about, oh, taking a shower with a bucket, a huacal. And okay, but that's like for a summer. But imagine having to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning to do that. It's fucking cold. And you still have to commute 2.5 hours in a broken infrastructure with like the roads or congestion to earn $4 and then get back at night. And there's like all these things that are happening in the world. And this is without gangs, right? So I can't speak to that because I'm not living that, right? So I respectfully don't adopt the virtue signaling of this is wrong, this is right. It's what are your experiences? What have you lived, right? I can tell you what life is like growing up in Downey, California. You know what I mean? But I can't tell you what it's like to grow up in Canton Los Amates. I can just tell you what I've witnessed from little glimpses of visiting.
Absolutely. I feel you. I'm on the same page.
Yeah.
If anything, I like to amplify voices of people who have something to say in those positions, right? But thank you for sharing regardless, man. I think that's great. I want to end on some lighthearted speed round questions.
All right, let's do it.
So this is first thing that comes to mind. Best pupusas in LA.
Ooh.
What's the spot?
Well, there's this stadium. No, I'm just kidding. Best pupusas in LA. I mean, man, that's such a tough question. I think the pupusas that you make with your family, I think are the best pupusas in LA, right? But you can go to restaurants. I mean, if you wanted me to shout out, I can't do it. It's gonna get me in trouble, man. I can't just say a specific spot because there's so many good pupusas here and people do so many different things. I would say the best pupusas in LA are the ones you make at home.
Politician answer.
Yeah.
We'll be diplomatic. All right. Better pupusas in LA or in El Salvador?
Oh man, it's got to be El Salvador. It's got to be El Salvador. Even the ingredients just taste better. The frijoles, I think it's all in the frijol.
The beans.
Yeah.
One place in El Salvador everybody should visit.
Man, this got me in trouble last time. I did an interview for another homie, and I was talking about Oriente, right? Going to the beaches in Oriente, and everybody's like, no, don't say that because now everybody's gonna go and gentrify Oriente. One place that everybody should visit in El Salvador is Suchitoto. Suchitoto is a culturally rich place, historically rich place. Another place is it's slipping my mind right now. Apaneca, La Ruta de las Flores. Like, man, everybody wants to talk about the beach. Like, go inland too, man.
Yeah.
Go to the lakes.
Favorite soccer player of all time?
Of all time. I always stop and watch whenever Ronaldo, not Cristiano Ronaldo, but the original Ronaldo. Any clip, I always stop and watch that. So I'd say Ronaldo.
Favorite Salvadorian artist or musician?
Tony Escoto. That's my boy, Tony Escoto. No, I think of all time, I really like the group, the artist, the group Orquestra San Vicente.
Okay.
Yeah. El Relámpago is like my cumbia. That's my jam, bro. Play that on my funeral. Like, that's my thing.
Okay. This is a two-part question. What's one thing Salvadorians need to stop doing? And what's one thing Salvadorians should do more of?
stop undercutting each other. Stop being crabs in a barrel. If you see somebody getting, some shine, put a flashlight on them so it's brighter. Like, stop and I feel like, man, it's multi-generational. I used to be like, oh, that's what the people used to do back in the 90s and the early 2000s. We're not going to be. And then it started happening in our community, in our era. And I'm like, man, like, stop being crabs in a barrel. What can they do more of? I think acknowledging our privilege in where we are, right? Like, there's Australians, Salvadorans in Australia that are organizing, and Florecemos together are the homies. That's the name of their collective, and it's so cool to see them organize, like talk to each other, build together. It's like, if you know an artist, maybe I know a gallery owner. Let's put that together, and do cool stuff. Build community. Do more of building friends. Invite each other over for a barbecue. You know what I mean? Like, go out and don't just go out and eat pupusas. Go get some pizza or something.
Right. If AFJA wasn't your path, what would you be doing?
I'd probably be a professor. I think I'd be like a science teacher.
Well, you had a degree in biology or something like that, right? Like, your BA is in biology.
Human biology.
What happened with that? Were you planning on being a doctor?
Yeah. So I did pre-med, and then I wanted to go the education route to be a professor. A lot of my old professors were like, dude, you got to be a professor, go to school and for that. But my entrepreneur fire just really pulled me in a different direction. And I still work in healthcare. I do mobile apps for a hospital here in LA. And
I remember you mentioned that to me.
Yeah.
That's your day.
Yeah,
gig.
but I've always been very attracted and curious about science, like plant science, animal science. So probably, or maybe work at the zoo or something. I don't know.
Let's end on one final note of Salvadoreño pride. What does it mean to you to be Salvadoreño?
To be Salvadoreño means to be just tenacious. I think to start with, I can speak for myself. I can't say that one word or one experience defines all Salvadoreños, but for me, I'm one person's decision away from a radically different lifestyle, and I don't want that to be taken for granted by myself or anybody else. So my parents came here with nothing, similar to a lot of friends and people that I know, and make the most out of that opportunity. And I think a lot of Salvadoreños, that's what we do. We make beauty out of nothing.
Well said, man. I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
Thank you, Steven.
Cool.
Appreciate you, bro. Thank you
Yes,
for coming
sir.
in, man.